He looked me in the eyes, the son I raised, protected, and sacrificed everything for, and shouted, "You're just jealous of her." That's the moment I stopped being his mother and started being a problem to erase. My name is Linda, and this is the story of how I was betrayed, silenced, and erased until I wasn't. Stay with me, and you'll see how silence spoke louder than blood, and how truth found its voice in the end. I found out about their anniversary dinner from Facebook. A photo popped up while I was scrolling absent-mindedly through my phone. A smiling Mark in a navy button-down, standing beside Samantha in a glittery gold dress, both of them surrounded by friends, laughter, clinking glasses. The caption read, "4 years down, forever to go, anniversary dinner." I stared at it for a long time, not because I was angry, but because I wasn't surprised. I hadn't been invited, not even a courtesy text. My hands trembled a little as I set the phone down. In that moment, the silence around me screamed. The kettle on the stove whistled low, but it was the kind of silence that presses on your chest, the kind that makes the walls feel closer than they should. Mark was my only child. I raised him alone after his father passed when Mark was just 6. I worked 3 jobs at one point, nights at the diner, weekends doing clerical work, and a midweek shift folding laundry at the care home. Every penny I earned went toward keeping our small apartment warm, his lunchbox full, and his heart safe from the weight of loss. I was both mother and father, and I never once asked for anything in return. But these days, I barely recognized the man I'd raised. Things began to shift around the time Samantha came into the picture. She was beautiful, poised, articulate, the kind of woman who always knew exactly what to say in a room full of people. On the surface, she was polite to me. Too polite, in fact. Always calling me ma'am, like I was some distant guest rather than her fiancé's mother. At first, I brushed it off. Not everyone wears warmth on their sleeves, I told myself. Maybe she just needs time. But time only widened the space between us. It started with little things, plans being changed last minute, family dinners where I suddenly wasn't needed, phone calls where Mark seemed rushed, distracted. Then came the clipped responses, the awkward silences, the way my calls started going to voicemail more often than not. One Thanksgiving, I made my signature sweet potato casserole, Mark's favorite since he was 12. I showed up at their house, dish in hand, heart open. Samantha answered the door with a surprised look. "Oh, I thought we told you we cancelled dinner. We're doing something private this year." Mark stood behind her but didn't say a word, just looked at me, and then looked away. I went home and ate that casserole alone. But it wasn't until a few months ago that I knew for sure. Knew that this wasn't just awkwardness or growing pains. It was deliberate. That was the day I received a text from Samantha. Or rather, a text meant for someone else. It read, "She's too clingy. She's trying to insert herself again. Honestly, Mark needs to tell her to back off. It's getting pathetic." It was sent directly to me, and when I didn't respond, she followed it up with, "Oh, sorry, that was meant for someone else." No apology, no explanation. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My heart already understood what my mind didn't want to admit. I was no longer welcome. But I wasn't jealous. I wasn't needy. I was a mother trying to stay in her child's life. And for that, I was labeled as an intrusion. Still, I kept my distance. I told myself to be patient. That maybe, just maybe, Mark would remember who I'd always been to him. Then, just last week, he called me out of the blue. No greeting, no warmth. His voice, sharp and angry, rang through the line. "You're just jealous of her." I didn't speak. I couldn't. Something in me cracked. Something old and sacred. That night, I sat in my quiet kitchen with the lights dimmed, holding the photo from their anniversary dinner. No invitation, no explanation. Just a mother, staring at the distance between her and the boy she once rocked to sleep. The last time I tried to do something kind for Samantha, it ended with Mark slamming his car door and telling me I was making things worse. She'd been admitted to the hospital for a minor outpatient procedure, something with her gallbladder, I think. I wasn't told directly. I found out through Emily, a family friend whose daughter works in the admissions department. When I asked Mark about it, he brushed me off with a quick, "It's not serious." Still, I wanted to show I cared. I stopped by the hospital with a bouquet of hydrangeas and a container of homemade soup. Samantha always claimed to be lactose intolerant, so I made sure it was dairy-free, lentils, carrots, just like my mother used to make when I was sick. I didn't go into her room. I just left the flowers and soup at the nurse's station with a handwritten card. It said, "Wishing you a gentle recovery. Let me know if you need anything. Linda." I was halfway home when my phone rang. It was Mark. "No hello, no thank you. Just, what are you doing?" I blinked. "I just dropped off some soup. Why would you go there?" She didn't ask for visitors. That was completely inappropriate. I remember pulling over, hand trembling on the wheel. "I didn't even go in, Mark. I just wanted her to know I was thinking of her." "You made it about you, Mum." She was uncomfortable. "You crossed a line." I wanted to say, "Since when did caring become crossing a line?" But I didn't. I just apologized. Because that's what I always did when Mark was upset. I had spent a lifetime smoothing his path, picking up the pieces when things fell apart. I never expected anything back. Just love. Just a phone call now and then. A kind word. I hung up, parked the car in the driveway, and sat still for nearly an hour, staring into nothing. That night, I cried. Not because he scolded me, but because I felt like a stranger in my son's life. In the weeks that followed, I kept trying. I sent gift cards to their favorite restaurant. I knitted a blanket when I heard Samantha had been feeling cold after the surgery. I even offered to dog sit when I saw them post about needing a weekend away. I didn't get a reply, not even a thank you. Instead, I noticed things. Mark's tone had changed. The warmth that used to live in his voice was gone. Every call, when there was one, felt like a formality, a checkbox. Samantha's name always found a way into the conversation. She thinks I need to grow up. She says I let people walk over us. She says we need to focus on our own family. And every time I heard, "she says," I felt myself getting smaller. One Sunday, I left a voicemail. I just said, "Hi, sweetheart. I hope you're doing okay. I miss you." I didn't realize what was coming. Later that evening, he called me back. I picked up, eager, foolishly hoping for warmth. But all I got was ice. "Stop calling us so much. Samantha feels like you're trying to insert yourself into everything. It's too much." I felt the sting of shame crawl up my chest. "I didn't mean to—" "You're just jealous of her," he snapped, louder this time. "You can't stand that she's the woman in my life now." My lips parted, but no words came out. Jealous? I wasn't jealous. I gave that boy my whole life, my sleep, my health, my heart. I went without so he could have. I clapped the loudest at every school play, sat with him through every heartbreak, and celebrated his every win, even the ones he didn't share with me. And now? Now I was reduced to a jealous woman, a threat, an obstacle. I hung up that night without a word. The silence wasn't cowardice. It was something deeper. It was grief. The kind of grief you feel when someone dies, but they're still walking around. The knock came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was folding laundry in the living room, fresh towels, some kitchen rags, nothing dramatic. The house was silent, except for the hum of the dryer. When I heard the knock, I thought it might be a delivery. But when I opened the door, 2 uniformed police officers stood on my porch. "Ma'am, are you Linda Carter?" the taller one asked. I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. "Yes. Is something wrong?" They exchanged a quick look. "We're here in response to a report filed against you. It's regarding allegations of harassment, disturbance, and repeated unwanted contact. Do you have a few minutes to speak with us?" I was stunned. The word harassment hit me like a slap. "Excuse me?" Against me, the shorter officer held up a folder. A formal complaint was filed by Samantha Jennings. Samantha. Of course. I felt my knees weaken and gestured for them to come inside. My living room, my quiet, peaceful space, suddenly felt like it didn't belong to me. They sat down and began reading the complaint. According to Samantha, I had repeatedly shown up unannounced, banged on windows late at night, sent over 40 text messages in 1 month, and, worst of all, threatened her safety and well-being. I blinked. My mouth went dry. That's not true, I whispered. None of that is true. The officers remained neutral, but one of them asked gently, "Do you have any contact logs or evidence that could help clarify things?" I nodded slowly. I do. I don't send dozens of texts. I've only reached out a few times in the last few weeks. I have the records. The taller one handed me a carbon copy of the report and said, "This is a warning. No arrest has been made, but we do recommend you cease all contact moving forward until this is resolved." I sat still as they left, the door closing softly behind them. The moment I was alone, I stood in the center of my living room, holding that report in my hands. My name, in black ink, accused. I read through it again, each line more surreal than the last. There were entire scenarios she had created, things that never happened, dates I wasn't even in town, alleged phone calls I never made, screenshots of messages that had clearly been doctored. I never called her names, never made threats. I couldn't breathe. I sat down and cried, not the loud, sobbing kind, the quiet, painful kind, the kind that shakes your shoulders while the tears fall silently. What hurt most wasn't the report. It was the knowledge that Mark must have known. There's no way she filed something like this without talking to him. And he went along with it. He let her paint me as dangerous, as unstable, as a problem that needed to be dealt with by force, a criminal. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I was never a harmful one. I never raised my voice in anger, never raised my hand. I gave him everything. And now he was giving me away, to suspicion, to shame, to the system. But somewhere inside that pain, a spark lit up, a quiet voice, low but firm. Fight this. So I did. I opened my laptop, pulled my phone records, and printed out the call logs. Only 5 calls in 6 weeks. 3 texts, 2 voicemails. That was it. I found a receipt from the day she claimed I showed up and banged on her windows. That day, I'd been out of town visiting my sister in Vermont. I even had gas station receipts and a time-stamped photo of me and my niece at a local cafe. Then I called the hospital's admin office and requested camera footage from the day I dropped off the flowers and soup, an image of me standing at the nurse's station, never going near her room. Piece by piece, I started building something I hadn't needed in 65 years. A defense, not just for my name, but for my motherhood, and for the truth. After the officers left and I held that police report in my hands, something inside me went still. Not broken, not defeated, just quiet. I didn't call Mark. I didn't rush to plead my innocence. I didn't demand answers. I simply sat with the truth, that the boy I raised now stood on the other side of a line, not by accident, but by choice. In the days that followed, I moved differently. I stopped leaving voicemails. I stopped checking their social media, stopped asking mutual friends how they were. I even took down the framed photo of the 3 of us, me, Mark, and Samantha, from the mantel. It had been taken during their engagement party. I remembered how I bought Samantha a sapphire bracelet that night, wanting her to feel welcomed. I remembered how she smiled at me and said, "You really didn't have to do this." Looking back, I hear the subtext more clearly now. I packed the photo into a drawer and turned my attention to what mattered, defending myself, quietly, carefully. I went to the police station on a Friday afternoon and asked to speak to the officer listed in the report. He remembered me. He raised his eyebrows slightly when I handed over my file, phone records, time-stamped photos, travel receipts, hospital documentation, everything marked, everything clean. He flipped through the papers and said, "You were in Vermont the day she claimed you were outside their home." I nodded. You can call the cafe. My niece manages it. She took the photo. He leaned back slowly in his chair. This is detailed. I met his eyes. Because I've been called a liar. And I'm not. He didn't say much after that. Just nodded and said they would escalate it for review. That false claims, especially those involving law enforcement, weren't taken lightly. I walked out of that building lighter than I'd felt in months. Not because it was over, but because I had done something for myself, for once. I spent the next few weeks in solitude. Not isolation, just intentional quiet. I cooked my meals, watered my plants, watched old films I loved. I crocheted a blanket for my neighbor's newborn granddaughter. I went to the library and walked through town without fear. But silence doesn't always last. One afternoon, as I stepped into the cafe near my home, I heard a voice. High, smooth, rehearsed. Samantha. She was seated on the patio, laughing with another woman I didn't recognize. Well-dressed, mid-30s, with a sharp laugh that echoed too loudly. I wasn't close enough for them to see me, but I could hear them. She bought it, Samantha said with a smirk. Played the victim like I knew she would. I told Mark she's obsessive, controlling. He totally believes it. The woman laughed. God, you're brutal. I had to set boundaries. She was too involved. And now, she won't come near us. I turned and walked away before my legs gave out. Back home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat down at the table, opened the drawer, and pulled out the police report once more. This time I read it like a lawyer, line by line, lie by lie. Then I opened a new folder on my computer and titled it Counter Evidence. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my name. I printed screenshots of my text history. Simple, kind, infrequent. I collected character references from neighbors who'd known me for over a decade. I even asked the librarian to write a short letter, confirming my presence at events on 2 of the alleged dates. I didn't share this with anyone. I didn't post about it. I didn't gossip. I didn't even tell my sister. Because something deeper than anger was guiding me. Dignity. You see, when someone paints you as hysterical, the most powerful thing you can do is be still. Still and prepared. And that's what I was. Prepared. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I heard the car pull into my driveway. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't dressed for company. Just an old sweater, house shoes, and my hair pinned back loosely. I looked out the window through the kitchen curtains. It was Mark. He was already out of the car, slamming the door shut harder than necessary, walking fast toward the house. I knew that walk. I'd seen it before, when he got a bad grade in middle school, when his first girlfriend broke up with him. But this time, it wasn't shame in his eyes. It was fury. I opened the door before he could knock. Are you happy now? He snapped, not even stepping inside. She's in tears, Mum. You're escalating things when she's already overwhelmed. I blinked. Excuse me? You went to the police, he shouted. You had no right to turn this into some kind of investigation. Samantha is scared. She said you're obsessed, that you're trying to ruin our lives. The words didn't sting this time. They echoed, hollow and predictable. I stepped aside. Come in. He paused, thrown off by the calmness in my voice. Then he walked in, still radiating heat. I closed the door gently behind him and said, Sit. He didn't. He stood in the middle of the living room like a storm waiting to break something. I didn't try to explain. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked over to the drawer beneath the bookshelf, pulled out a thick envelope, and held it out to him. What's this? He said, eyeing it with suspicion. Proof, I said softly. Since the truth has become negotiable in your house. He snatched the envelope, ripped it open, and began skimming. First, the printout of the police report Samantha had filed against me, word for word, lie for lie. Then stapled beneath it, my counter evidence, timestamps, call logs, hospital footage stills, cafe receipts, character statements. He stopped flipping after the 3rd page. His eyes flicked up to me, just for a second. His face looked less angry, but not yet remorseful. This doesn't mean anything, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. You probably edited this. I raised an eyebrow. I printed it directly from my phone bill and the hospital records. You can verify every piece. He opened his mouth, but said nothing. I continued, Mark, I didn't file this out of spite. I filed it because someone lied under oath about me. And you let it happen. He looked away. I stepped closer. My voice was calm, but firm. You know me. You've known me your whole life. Do you really think I'd bang on someone's windows in the middle of the night? Do you honestly believe I would threaten your wife? Silence. The boy I raised, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who cried into my arms after college rejection letters, stood there, unsure of who to believe. And that broke me more than any false report ever could. I don't want to be part of your drama anymore, Mum, he muttered, folding the papers and pushing them back toward me. I didn't take them. You don't have to believe me, I said, but one day, when she turns on someone else, and she will, you'll remember this moment. His jaw clenched. He turned, walked toward the door, but just before he opened it, he stopped. Why couldn't you just leave us alone? I exhaled slowly. Because I loved you, I said. Because I believed that somewhere beneath the fog she's wrapped you in, the real you might still exist. He didn't respond. He opened the door and left. No slam this time, just silence. As I stood alone in the living room, the evidence still sitting on the table untouched, I realized something. He hadn't defended her. Not once. He'd yelled. He'd denied. But not once did he look me in the eye and say she was right. And that was the first crack. For a week, I heard nothing. Not from Mark. Not from Samantha. Not from anyone. But silence, I've learned, is rarely still. It moves under the surface, spreading like ripples on a quiet lake. I went about my life. I volunteered at the library again, something I'd stopped doing months ago when I felt too hollow to be around people. I returned books I'd long forgotten were due. I even picked up a memoir by a woman who lost her family to lies and rebuilt herself from scratch. Then, on a Thursday morning, I got a call. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice was unmistakable. Mrs. Carter, my name is Denise Walker. I used to work with Samantha. I sat down. Yes? I hope I'm not overstepping, but I saw something online. A post you shared about false accusations and how quiet women are often misread. It resonated with me because Samantha did something similar to my aunt. My breath caught. She convinced her husband that his family was toxic, that they were controlling and dangerous. She filed a restraining order against his sister based on lies, and years later admitted it. I lost contact with my aunt for 6 years because of Samantha's story. She paused. I just wanted to say, what you're going through, you're not crazy. She's done this before, and she's good at it. I thanked her, kindly, calmly. But after I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. It wasn't just me. This was a pattern, a method. Samantha wasn't acting out of pain or fear. She was acting out of control, power, testing how far she could push people before they broke or disappeared. Later that day, I received a call from the officer handling my report. We've completed our review, he said. Given the strength of your evidence, we're formally closing the case. You'll receive written confirmation. And just for your peace of mind, we've flagged the original complaint as potentially falsified. He paused. You handled this with more grace than most. That meant more to me than I expected. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply whispered, thank you. Because the truth didn't need to be loud. It just needed to exist. Word traveled quietly from there. Emily, our family friend, stopped by one afternoon with banana bread and curiosity. I ran into Mark at the pharmacy, she said, eyes cautious. He looked different, hollow, like someone who'd just been told something they couldn't unhear. I didn't pry, because by then I had learned something valuable. When people choose lies over love, they have to sit with the weight of that choice, alone. It wasn't my job to save him from that anymore. Still, part of me wondered, had he finally seen the papers for what they were? Had he checked the timestamps, the receipts, the reports? Or had Samantha finally slipped and gone too far? I got my answer the following week. My niece, who still followed Samantha on social media, forwarded me a post. Sometimes toxic people pretend to be the victim. Protect your peace. Distance is healing. The caption was vague, but the tone was familiar. Mark hadn't liked it. He hadn't commented either. But a few hours later, it was deleted. The same day, I received a message on my answering machine. His voice, hesitant, quieter than I'd ever heard it. Hi, Mum. I know we haven't talked. I'm starting to realize I might have been wrong about a few things. I miss you. That was all he said. No apology, no confession, but a crack wide enough to let the light back in. I didn't call him back, not yet. Not because I didn't love him, but because I had spent too long chasing people who never once chased me. If Mark wanted to come back, he'd have to walk, not be pulled. It was early evening when I saw him. The sun was just beginning to sink, casting long shadows across the lawn. I was sitting in my usual chair near the window, crocheting a soft grey shawl for a neighbour's granddaughter. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of stillness I had learned to love again. Then I saw movement. Mark. He wasn't driving this time. He'd walked. He had no bag, no flowers, no practiced speech, just himself, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, standing at the foot of the porch steps, like a boy waiting to be invited in. I didn't move. I watched him sit down on the second step, elbows on his knees, head bowed like he was praying. He stayed there for 10 minutes, then 15. He didn't look at his phone, didn't fidget, just waited. Finally, I stood and opened the door. He looked up. For the first time in what felt like years, he looked like my son again. Not the defensive stranger molded by someone else's narrative, but the boy who used to leave me crayon notes that read, "You're the best mama in the world." His voice cracked when he said, "She's gone." I didn't ask what that meant. Not yet. She left yesterday, took her things, said she needed space, and this morning, I found out she filed something against my sister. He paused, blinking hard. Same words, same lies, the exact same phrases she used about you. I stepped outside but didn't sit. I looked through the papers you gave me, really looked. I called the cafe in Vermont. I even went to the hospital and requested the visitor log. His voice broke. You never even went near her room. I said nothing. I let him unravel the truth himself. I let her lie to me, he whispered. I let her poison how I saw you. I defended her, and I turned my back on you. His shoulders shook. She said you were trying to control us, that you were emotionally unstable. She even said she was scared of you. He looked up at me again, eyes rimmed red. But I think she was scared of something else. She was scared of what would happen if I actually listened to you. I felt tears press against the back of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. I'm sorry, Mum, he said. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make it right. I sat down slowly beside him. You can't make it right all at once, I said. But you can start by being honest. With yourself. With your sister. With everyone she turned you against. He nodded, wiping his face with the sleeve of his shirt. There was a long pause. Then he asked, like a boy again, "Can I come in?" I looked at the door, then back at him. "Not tonight," I said gently. "Maybe someday." His eyes widened slightly, surprised, but not angry. I wasn't trying to punish him. I was trying to heal, and healing needed boundaries. As he stood, nodding with quiet understanding, I added softly, "I still love you, Mark. But love doesn't mean I have to bleed for you again." He didn't argue. He just nodded again and walked down the steps. At the sidewalk, he turned around and said, "I'll wait as long as it takes." I stood there until he disappeared down the street. The porch was quiet again, the air cooler now, the sun nearly gone. I stepped back inside and closed the door. Not slammed, not locked, just closed. As I picked up my shawl and settled back into my chair, I thought of all the ways a heart breaks, and all the ways it mends, too. He had chosen her, but I had chosen peace. And in that choice, I found something far greater than forgiveness. I found me again.